When I got to the cockpit, I found Captain Sunlight and Weo looking over a bunch of text on the main screen. It looked like a standard enough job post for the kind of courier work we do, though the fact that the captain had called me in to consult about it suggested something a little less standard. "I'm here," I said unnecessarily. They'd both already spotted me. "Yes, thank you for coming," said Captain Sunlight, running a claw thoughtfully across her arm scales. "I wanted your input before accepting this one. It's an urgent timeline since another ship had engine trouble and had to land short of the destination. Animal cargo marked as livestock from your planet. Are chickens particularly difficult to transport?" "Oh, no, they should be fine," I said in relief. "I thought you were about to say it was a bull or some exotic zoo animal. Chickens are great, scanned for contagion. They're messy birds." Wyo tapped a few buttons with her tentacles. "I think this paragraph boils down to just normal poop germs, nobody panic." I chuckled. "Yeah, that sounds about right." "And they're in several carrying pens of reasonable size," Weo added. "Those ought to fit in the hold with room to spare." Captain Sunlight nodded. "We accept. I'll send the message while you alter course. Robin, would you mind telling the others? Blip and Blop will be the best suited to moving the crates around. We'll arrive shortly." "Sure thing," I said, heading for the lounge where I'd seen the Frillian twins playing board games earlier. I was thinking that this delivery ought to be pleasant. It had been a while since I heard the gentle clucking of chickens. Shortly afterward, I was back in the cockpit, staring in the screen and thinking how wrong I'd been as Weo brought us in for a landing. The ship we were there to meet had crashed, not landed, and the bay doors were open with chickens flapping everywhere. 2 humans in flight suits ran around trying to catch them while avoiding mud puddles. And oh yeah, it was foggy and wet everywhere. Fan-freaking-tastic. Captain Sunlight hit the intercom. "In the interest of completing this delivery in the desired time frame, we need everyone to join us outside to help catch escaped livestock. Minimal danger, yes?" That last part was directed at me. I leaned forward and spoke into the microphone. "The worst they can do is peck you in the eye. Their claws are blunt. Be gentle picking them up, they're fragile." Most of the crew didn't need that warning, but a couple definitely did. Captain Sunlight concluded, "Whoever's closest to storage, grab any spare container bigger than a moon melon. We can sanitize them later." Then she turned off the intercom and hopped to her feet. On the screen behind her, one human waved at us in clear relief while the other clutched a chicken under each arm. I ran for the crew door, not waiting for the captain. I thought about detouring for a storage bin, but I figured I'd see what those other humans already had. And somebody had to get the chickens out of the mud pronto. If this area was as cold as it looked, I hadn't checked the readout except for the breathability rating. Then the poor birds could be in risk of hypothermia. I stepped out of the airlock into air that was chilly, but not as bad as it could be. Extremely muddy and full of distressed chicken noises. At least the other ship had managed to crash in a low foliage area. If they'd hit the forest in the distance, this would have been a very different kind of misadventure. As it was, the dignified classical song Yaketi Sax was playing in the back of my head as I joined in the muddy chase. Blip and Blop piled out of the ship behind me, and one of them promptly fell with a dramatic squelch. I didn't turn to see which. A human yelled, "Thanks for the help!" as he snagged a fast-running brown hen that kicked in protest. All the cages broke open. "We've been putting them in whatever we have." "We've got some storage bins," I said, making a lunge for another hen that had probably been white once but was brown now. I promptly got mud all over my shirt when I tucked her in close. "How many chickens are there?" "Exactly 20, he said. "So far we've caught 6. He turned toward his ship where the other human was swearing vigorously and 3 chickens were running back out into the mud. "Make that 3. "Well, let's see what we can do to fix that," I said, holding the muddy chicken and looking back at my own ship. Excited bug-leg footsteps were clicking towards the entrance. Maybe we can herd them back on board, then worry about the cages. Blip and Blop wisely stepped aside, both looking like mud-wrestling champions, as Trilly charged out of the ship, followed by G. The storm of black and red exoskeleton plus shiny purple made every chicken in the area squawk and run in circles faster. I yelled, "Be gentle," herd them back into the ship, and hoped for the best. The chicken in my arms twitched. Trilly raced along the outer edge of the flock, head down, mantis arms unfolded, hissing malevolently, clearly having a great time. G did the same in the other direction. I wonder if they'd planned this. For all I knew, prey animal herding was a school sport where they came from. Everybody else came out to join the party, contributing an array of hands and tentacles, and what seemed like limited experience with farm animals. I gave what pointers I could, and the captain deferred to my expertise. But mostly it was a chaos of flapping, squawking, and clumsy attempts to grab them. I caught the most chickens thanks to practice and my long reach, Coles was surprisingly fast, despite being the shortest of the lizardy folks and spending most of his time on sedentary translation work. All three of the strong arms were naturals, but with that many tentacles each, I would have been shocked if they weren't. Trilly and G herded the flock. Everybody else handled storage tubs and miscellaneous containers and did what they could. "Put it in here," said Paint, holding up a wire basket thing from the other ship that might have been part of a lamp. "We're running out of containers, but this works." I gave it a once-over while the large and opinionated speckled hen in my arms tried to wriggle free. Then I shoved her in beak first and helped Paint get the lid fastened, or whatever passed for one. It clamped in place well enough. Paint was breathing hard by the time we finished, and her orange scales were smeared with mud. The chicken ruffled her feathers but settled into place. Paint asked, "How many are left?" I looked around. "I think just the two over there, but we should check." "I'll count them," Paint said, hefting the basket and taking careful steps toward the ship. "Thanks. I'll get—" "Oh, they're on it." I stopped as Trilly scared the last two chickens into the muddy hands of Blip and Blop. Captain Sunlight held out a box that I recognized as something the new gravity wand had come in. Ironic, since that would probably be useful later in cleaning up all the mud we were going to track into the ship. "That's all of them!" exclaimed one of the other two humans. "Oh man, thank you. We never would have caught them all." Trilly hissed, looking disappointed that the chase was over. "Yes, and they likely wouldn't fare well on this planet. No natural defenses to speak of." I spoke up, walking over behind Paint. "Plus, this is too cold for them when they're wet. Do we have time to try to clean them up now, or do we need to get going and worry about that later?" I was pretty sure I knew the answer, but it was worth asking. No luck, though. The timeline was tight, and I'd have to worry about potential hypothermia once we were en route. The captain said she'd make sure I wasn't the only one dealing with that. As the resident chicken expert, I oversaw the loading of the bedraggled birds onto our ship, while Captain Sunlight finalized the details with the humans on the other one. It sounded like they had a repair tow ship on the way, and were thoroughly exasperated with the whole mess. As I lifted another trash can full of chickens, I heard one human say, "I swear this happens every time the bosses decide we're not making enough money. They send us out short-staffed on short notice, and they override the maintenance checks. I wrote them a scathing letter last time, and I don't think anyone even read it." The other human said, "My brother's been pestering me to quit and join him at the feed store. They get regular hours and overtime pay there." Sounding tired, the first asked, "Do they need 2 new people?" I freed a hand to give an enthusiastic thumbs up from a distance. They both saw me and cracked smiles. Captain Sunlight didn't notice, but she said something diplomatic about work existing to support a life, not ruin it. The humans were talking about convincing other co-workers to quit too, or at least to threaten the bosses with it if conditions didn't improve, when I went inside the ship. The storage hold was full of action, with people coming and going with muddy containers full of poultry. In the center of it, Mur had stationed himself at the door to the clear-walled cargo enclosure, holding it open with 2 tentacles while he used the others to wrangle in 1 chicken at a time without letting any others out. We'd originally thought that we wouldn't need to use that pen, but so much for that. At least it was easy to clean. I set down my clucking trash can as Paint trotted in with the sun lamp from the crew lounge. I said, "Oh hey, good idea." Paint beamed. "This will keep them nice and warm. We can set it to hover above them." She messed with the settings on the little globe. "They won't be scared of it, will they?" "Nah, should be fine." I watched as Paint set it to hover like a tiny sun, reaching past Mur to place it in the pen. The chickens only clucked mildly about it and ruffled their feathers. "There," Paint said in satisfaction. "Are there more to bring in?" "Not many," I told her, leaving the trash can in the care of Blip, who opened it to hand the chickens to Mur. "Okay, let's get the last." Paint was clearly tired but also determined, and she led the way back out. "So what are chickens kept for mainly?" "Just food." "Some are for eating," I agreed, "but we eat their eggs just as much as their meat. They lay 1 each day, even without mating." "That's a lot of eggs." "Yep," I agreed. "And they eat food scraps, and their poop can compost down into fertilizer, and the feathers can be useful too." We were talking about feather dusters when we reached the other ship, where the last container full of chickens waited for a couple people to carry it. This was another wire thing, heavier than the last. Just as the one human standing next to it started to say something, the other human in the background shrieked. "Wire eaters. That's why." Both of them started hopping around and stomping, and in a flash I saw the tiny skittering things flowing across the floor. Captain Sunlight was between the 2 ships. She yelled something back at ours about airlock protocols and a scan for pests. Next to me, Paint leapt back in a panic. But the chickens looked at those mobile morsels of food and snapped up every one that came near their cage. Among the panic, I stepped forward and let the last chickens out. The other humans asked what I was doing. Then they just stood there and watched the chickens happily chase down the tiny pests with all the steely-eyed intensity of 3 very fluffy descendants of dinosaurs. I said to Paint, "That's another reason to keep chickens. Not the only reason, but definitely a perk." "I see that," she agreed. The chickens had already caught all of the pests and were searching around for more. "Now let's get them in under the sun lamp so they can dry off," I said. "They have a worse time in the cold and wet than you do." "Right." Paint nodded with the certainty of a cold-blooded lizardy type who understood bad temperatures all too well. "I'm not giving them my heat shawl." "I wouldn't expect you to," I said. "The lamp will be plenty."